Now, what are the 3 key things you must do when conducting interviews? All right, so let me share with you the agenda for today. All right, first of all, I'm going to run through the objectives again and why you are here. Reassure yourself why you are here. I'm going to talk about the critical steps for an accurate interview. And this is where I'm going to share with you the 3 key steps. And I will also share with you what next, right? After these 3 key steps, what else can I do? Where else can I go to enhance my interviewing skills? And finally, some Q&A to answer the questions that you may have. And let's take a group photo before we end the day. So very quickly. Now, some tips for those listening in. Please mute your mic if you're on Zoom. Switch on your video if possible, right? Be interactive. I love it if you all could participate in by using the chat box, polls if there are any, and I may get you to type out different things throughout the session. So please feel free to type and interact as much as you can, and ask questions in the chat box, which I will get to during the call. And if not during the call, I will definitely get back to you privately to answer your questions if we run out of time here. Okay. All right. So let me check with you. Does this sound familiar to you? All right. And have you faced something like this before? Number 1, a candidate looks and sounds great during an interview, but after hiring them, they turn out to be poor performers or they turn out to have bad attitude. Have you experienced that before? Or you hire someone and that person looks, and the person turns out to be not very good and doesn't pass the probation. So at the end of probation, he doesn't get the confirmation. But now you have to restart the recruitment process and you're going to start interviewing all over again, from getting the CVs, filtering them, calling them in for an interview, 1 interview, 2 interviews, 3 interviews, right? Has that happened to you before? Right? And you know what's the worst thing? The worst thing is the second time you hire, there's no guarantee that this person will be better, right? So you're so worried as a manager that you're going to repeat this again and again and again. Scenario number 3, you hire someone and during the interview, they looks good, but in reality, they are not that great. But you think that maybe over time, you can groom them and coach them and maybe they can be better over time, right? Have you been in that scenario before? Right. So number 3, if you answer yes, you have been in this scenario, let me give you some hard truth and some reality. The reality is this: if within the first few weeks or a month, and you see the attitude is negative, it's going to be very hard to groom and train them and change the attitude, no matter how much you try. No matter how much you try. It's going to take a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of money, and a lot of heartache for you. So is that really what you want to do? Right? So the key thing is this: you actually have to hire someone with a good attitude from the beginning. Yes.
E.T. Yep. Sorry, E.T. to interrupt, but I think there is an echo, when you speak. I'm not sure. For my laptop, there's some echo.
Right, okay. This would probably be... Okay, is it better now? Any change? Is it okay?
Yeah.
What about the rest of you? Do you hear an echo for the rest of you?
Mine's fine. Yeah.
It's fine. Okay. So I go ahead. Thanks, Sarah. If you still hear some interruptions or some echo, let me know. All right. So if this scenario sounds familiar to you, one of those that I've highlighted, then this is you're at the right place, because I'm going to share with you some tips that can help you turn this around. Now, allow me to share with you a little bit about my background and why what I've been doing. I'm a certified behavioral interviewer, and I've been doing this for over 15 years. All right, 15 years, and I've been training in 10 different countries, right, for multiple clients and corporations. And I specialize in conducting interviews, training people how to do interviews. I specialize in psychometric profiling, which we can also use for interviews. And I also develop new leaders and new managers for companies. And my background is I actually come from an IT background, right? I worked in UK and Malaysia as a software engineer before I transitioned to the human resource and the people side of of training. So I have a unique combination of IT skills and people skills. And I try to merge that and incorporate that in all of my training and consulting work. Okay, so these are the countries I've trained in. And some of the notable clients that I've trained include Starbucks, AirAsia, ExxonMobil, MDEC, Royal Bank of Canada, Top Glove, T-Systems, Nestle, and Seagate. Right. Of course, I've also trained many SMEs and local corporations as well. Right. So in terms of interviews, I've probably trained hundreds of managers and probably over 100 companies in how to conduct interviews. Right. And these are some of my clients as well. Some photos of me in training. So just a bit of background about it, right? About myself. Okay. So when it comes to interviews, one of my clients is an airline. So I actually work with them to train them how to interview pilots, right? How to interview pilots. Now, so my specialty is not to, I'm not there to train them how to test their technical skills and their piloting abilities. I teach them how to assess the attitude of the candidate before they join that particular airline, right? So that's how this technique is very useful. Okay, so let me share some stats with you. Number one, studies have shown that hiring the wrong person costs the company 3 times the annual salary. 3 times, right? 3 times the annual salary. Why? Because if they turn out to be no good, you got to repeat the hiring process. You lose out in time and money and opportunity costs. If you hire someone who is lousy, they can cause a lot of problems, right? And they can damage the morale of your team. So that costs you money. And let me share with you one case study of one actual client. So this client came to me and said, "E.T., he had this experience with one of his close buddies. His friend owned this company, owns his own company, and he hired a COO with a COO and to be intention to take over the running of the company. So he said during the interview, this candidate looked so good, so good. Hired this COO, potential future CEO. Unfortunately, the person turned out to be a really horrible character. And what this guy did, he tried to do a reverse takeover of the company. Can you imagine that? So this owner who's been building this company from scratch for 20 plus years wants to hand over to the next in line and probably retire and maybe become a director, you know, and just an advisor. Hires this beautiful candidate who he trusts, and turns out this guy tried to do some funny things, and in reverse is trying to sue back the company and do a reverse takeover. And so now they're locked in a legal battle between the owner and this COO, and the battle has been running for over 18 months. Right? All this from hiring the wrong person. Now it's unfortunate that, I mean, sometimes you won't know, right? Because you hire the person, then you realize this guy is this kind of character. But let me tell you this, there is a way to know. There is a way to know. Okay. Another point I want to share with you is extroverts do better in interviews, but many jobs do not require an extrovert. Many studies show that an unstructured 30-minute interview is virtually worthless as a predictor of long-term performance. You have only a slightly more chance of choosing the better of 2 employees as you would by flipping a coin. What does that mean? That means if you interview just the old way or the traditional way, you might as well just flip a coin and say yes or no. Right? So what does that tell us? The reality is many of us are not trained in conducting interviews. Let me ask you, those listening in, where did you learn your interviewing skills? Most people will say, I learned my interviewing skills from the interviews I attended, right? So no one is formally trained on the technique and the methods of how to conduct interviews. Let me give you some good news. There is a method, there is a technique, and I'll share that with you. Okay, and this is the structure that I would like all of you to take this back and implement this when you do your next interview. These are the critical steps for an accurate interview. Step number 1, you must prep the candidates, right? Whether it's 1 or 2 or 5 candidates, prep the candidates. Number 2, you must define the job and competencies. So when you hire a person, you must know what kind of person you're looking for and what qualities you want. You can't go into an interview saying, I want to hire the best person I can see. I want to hire the most capable person I can meet. You can't. You must be clear on what are the criteria you want. What kind of qualities, what kind of competencies they want. Such as, do you want someone with analytical skills? Do you want someone with leadership skills, presentation skills, selling skills, right? So you must be clear on what you want. Step number 3, start the interview. How you start the interview is very important, right? How you break the ice, how you set the context and clarify expectations. And you actually tell the candidate what you want, what you're looking for. Step number 4 is asking questions. So what kind of questions do you ask? Okay, so this is very important. This is critical, right? Step number 5 is, based on what they say, how do you verify the truth? So I saw Felix Tay asking earlier, how do you know whether the person is lying or not? This is step number 5. There is a way to know whether they're lying or not. Step number 6 is, after interviewing and asking all the questions, you do a job person match and you rate the person. You do a rating. And then finally, step number 7 is you decide. You make a decision. So all these 7 steps are important. Now, if you're looking at my slides, you will see I put number 4, 5, 6 in blue. Because this is the most critical 3 things you must do. Ask, verify, and then do a match and rating. The reality is this, most of us are untrained, right, in interviews. So most people will only do what? They jump into the interview and they do step number 4, which is asking the questions. They don't do other things. They don't prep the candidate. They don't prepare the job competencies. They just go straight into interview and ask the questions. What kind of questions they ask? Well, most likely the questions somebody has asked them before in their previous interview. That's what happens. So now I'm telling you there's a structured way and there are specific questions that you can ask. Right. So today we will only have time. I only have limited time to share with you one key aspect of this, and I'm going to share with you item number 4, which is one of the most important out of these 7 steps. So item number 4 is asking questions. What questions can we ask during interviews? In fact, there's a question that you must ask in an interview, and I'm going to share that with you. Right. So you may want to take a photo of this. Right, these 7 steps, take it with your phone and take a screenshot of this and keep this as a checklist for you. Okay, so let's go into item number 4, asking the questions. Right. So everything okay so far? If okay, please type in your chat box, say okay, and so that I can continue and proceed. All right, thank you. So asking questions. I said I'll share with you 3 things, right? The first thing I'll share with you is actually what not to do. Number 1, in an interview, you should not ask personal questions and do not stereotype. Because by asking a lot of personal questions, you will tend to stereotype. Personal questions such as what? Where do you come from? Are you married? Do you have kids? What's your hobby? Even questions like, what are your strengths and weaknesses? That's a very common question that people ask. No, you go to interviews, people, what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Where do you see yourself in 3 years? Where do you see yourself in 10 years? These are very common questions. And what I'm saying is, don't ask these questions because they do not give you any value. Okay? So don't ask personal questions. Now, because as an interviewer, you must understand that we, as humans, we tend to stereotype. It's very easy for us to stereotype. Now, let me read for you this quote from brandimageinstitute.com. It says, first impressions is made based on 7% spoken words, 38% the voice, and 55% is depending on your body language. So first impressions count, right? It counts. But I'm telling you as an interviewer, first impression does not tell you the capability of the person. So do not be misguided and do not be fooled by first impressions. Right? Just because I'm wearing a red shirt doesn't mean I'm a lucky fella. All right? It's just the color. Just because I'm putting on a coat doesn't mean I am a professional. It's just that I got money to buy a coat and I'm wearing a coat now. Right? Taking off this coat doesn't make me any less professional. Right? It just makes me coatless. That's all. Right? So to prove an example, I'm going to show you a picture on those on Zoom. You can see this. If this person, imagine if this person comes into your interview room, what is your impression of him? Right? Good or no good? Type in the chat box. Right? I'm not asking you what kind of job. Just say this candidate comes in for an interview. Good or no good? So he's dressed in cut-off t-shirt. He's got tattoos all around his body. Wearing jeans, standing like a cowboy. Right? Nothing against cowboys, but you know he's coming for an interview looking like a cowboy or a gangster. Right? What is your impression of him? Would you hire him? Right? I've shown this to managers, and some managers say, "Et, if I see him at the door, I won't even let him in my company." So guys, That is stereotyping. You don't even know the person. You haven't even met the person. You haven't even spoken to the person. Why would you stereotype him or her and say that, no, he can't do the job? How do you know that? You don't. Now, look at the next picture. Right. So many say definitely will not hire, not good, not a good impression. And you're right. But look at the next picture. What if this same guy came in dressed like this? Professional, smart looking, exactly the same guy, just with a different coat. Do you notice your first impression changes now? If he comes in a tie, in a coat, in a jacket, exactly the same person. Now remember, his capabilities and his abilities has not changed. Huh? It's only his dressing. Right. So my tip to interviewers, do not stereotype. Do not stereotype. Now, I don't imagine a lot of people will come dressed very poorly for an interview. Right. I don't expect that. But what I'm saying is, even if they do dress not up to your standard or not up to your style, that doesn't reflect their capability. And the reverse is the same. Even if they dress professionally, dressed to the T's, and they look great, it doesn't mean they are good in their jobs. Right? It just means they have a good sense of style. That's it. So that's key tip number one. Don't stereotype and don't ask personal questions. So what if you can't ask personal questions, then what kind of questions you can ask? So let me show you the magic question that everyone can ask in your interview. So get ready for number two. Get ready for number two. This is the question you have to ask. Okay? You need to ask questions to target the attitude and the mindset of that person, right? Because statistics have shown knowledge and skills is important for a job. Okay? But most people who come for interviews after going through the CVs and filtering, knowledge and skills you already know. You can test them on knowledge and skills, not a problem. But do you realize to be successful in a job, actually it is attitude and personality. And studies have shown this is the key. Right? So ask yourself this question, those listening in now. Those of you who work with staff or you have colleagues or you have managers, right? Let me ask you, those with staff, have you had problematic staff before in your team? Right? I'm sure many of you have. And if you don't have, you know of problematic staff in your company. Now, let me ask you, look at these problematic staff and let me ask you, are they problematic because of their knowledge and skills or their lack of knowledge and skills? Or are they problematic because of their attitude and personality? Right? I can guarantee 90% of you will say the problem is because of their attitude and personality, not what they know. In fact, sometimes the more they can know a lot, they might be experts in their field, but they have such a lousy attitude, they can't work with people, they can't communicate, and they cause a lot of disharmony in the team. So you must ask questions to target the attitude and personality. Why? Because knowledge and skills is easy to identify and easier to train and develop compared to attitude and personality. And attitude and personality is harder to evaluate, yes. How do you even assess someone's attitude, right? Harder to evaluate and difficult to train and develop. So this brings me to number 3. So what questions do you ask to assess the attitude and personality? So number 3 is a magic question. Get ready for this. Oh, before that, Simon Sinek says, you don't hire for skills, you hire for attitude. Right? Because you can always teach skills. Right. So ask questions to target attitude and mindset. This is what you ask. A question you can ask for your next interview. Tell us about your biggest achievement in your previous job. Right. So take a photo of this, write this down, type it out in WhatsApp and send it to yourself or send it to your friends. This is the key question. Tell us about your biggest achievement in your previous job. Right. Now, what's the key thing about this question? Right. The key thing is tell us about your biggest achievement in your previous job. That means it has to be something they have already done or something they have already achieved. Okay. So what you don't ask them is this, and a lot of interviewers make this mistake, right? They ask them hypothetical questions, such as, if I were to hire you, will you be able to manage this project on your own? Right? Will you be able to handle this project on your own? What do you think he's going to answer? 100% he's going to say yes. Why? Because he's at an interview, right? You don't ask him, okay, if I were to hire you as a salesperson, will you be able to bring sales into my company? Right? I can answer it for him. He will say yes, she will say yes. So don't ask hypothetical questions or idealistic questions like that. You ask them about their biggest achievement in their previous job. Keyword being previous. Okay. Now I know what a lot of you are thinking. Wow, E.T., this, I mean, it's a good question, but how do I know the candidate is telling me the truth? What if he's very good at creating stories and klentong and just winging it and just bluffing me, right? Creating a story on the spot? Well, then you get to number 3. And number 3 is this. You always look to the past. And you ask this, always ask this, give me an example. Give me an example, right? So you give me an example and you keep harping on the example and getting details. And there's a technique to verify whether they're telling the truth or not. The technique is called probing. So I won't have time to cover what probing is, but probing is just basically asking them follow-up questions about their achievement and how did they do it. By probing and scrutinizing the details, then you'll know whether they're telling the truth or not. Right? Because if they lied about the story or they're just creating something on the spot to impress you, now they can answer the first few questions, but the more questions you ask about the situation, they will stumble, right? And they will fumble, right? So no matter how good a liar you are, they will fumble, right? So of course your questioning technique has to be better than him. So you must know what to ask and just keep giving me an example and asking for an actual example. Why? Because the philosophy is this. Past behavior is the best prediction of future behavior. I repeat, past behavior is the best prediction of future behavior. Right? So if you want to know how a person will behave when he or she joins your company, very simple. Find out how he or she behaved in the previous company, in the previous job. Okay. And how do you do that? By asking question number 2, give me an example of tell me your biggest achievement you achieved in your previous job and give me an example. Right? Or give me a few examples. Right? Now, some of you will realize that, look, hey, E.T., this is an interesting question. And actually, this is a question you can ask for any job at any levels. Am I right? Whether you're a junior accountant or a senior engineer or a CTO or CFO, you can always ask this question. Right? Okay, so those are the 3 key things. Right? I hope that has been useful. And for some of you, it might be eye-opening or even mind-blowing. Right? Has that been useful? If it's been useful for you, please type yes in the comment box. Whether you're on Facebook or on Zoom, please type yes. Is that be useful? And if it's something you can use in your interviews, please type. Great. Okay. So, just to sum up, the critical steps for an accurate interview, there are 7 steps. I repeat, 7 steps. Number 1, prepping the candidate. Number 2, define the job and competencies. Number 3, starting the interview. Number 4, asking the questions. So I've given you 2 questions you can ask, right? And what not to ask, okay? But in reality, there are many more questions you can ask. And I actually have a cheat list or a quick checklist that you can use in all your interviews, okay? But today, we only have time to cover those few questions. Number 5, you have to verify the truth. Number 6, job person match. And number 7, how to decide. So some of you may be asking, E.T., that's very good, and this is very interesting. How can I learn more about this? Or how can I learn more about the other steps that we didn't cover today? All right. So I'd like to get your permission to share with you a program that can equip you with the skills to cover all steps 1 to 7. Right? Is that okay? If it's okay, please type in the chat box. And if it's okay, then I will share with you a program that can totally transform the way you conduct interviews, and you will be able to identify whether they're telling the truth or not from the beginning. Right. Okay, so many of you say, okay, thank you very much. So this program I'm talking about is called the FBI interview program. Now, I know what you're thinking about FBI. My FBI here actually stands for Focused Behavioral Interview. Right? Focused Behavioral Interview. It's a technique that I'm going to share with you how to do all this 1 to 7. Right? So why is this FBI interview program for you? Number 1, Imagine if you're able to identify the real talent and what their attitudes are before you hire them. Would that be good? Would that make your life easier as a leader, as a manager? Right? Imagine if you're able to ask the questions during every interview, you know what questions to ask to verify that they are telling the truth. Would that be helpful for you? And imagine if you're able to increase the quality of your hiring and you're able to improve your staff retention rate by hiring staff who are capable and loyal and stay with your company and perform. Now imagine that with every team member you interview and hire. Wouldn't that be great? Imagine if you're able to learn a technique that can change the way you interview anyone and everyone for the rest of your career, from junior positions to senior positions, right? I even use this technique to interview my insurance agents who approach me, or real estate agents who approach me, right? I use this to interview them, right? I even use this interview to interview my confinement lady before I hired her to help us take care of our newborn baby. So it's something that you can use. And imagine, right? If all this time your interviews have not been effective, imagine if there's a way you can learn a way to make your interviews more effective and more accurate. Would that help you in your career? Okay. So will it work for you? And is this something that can be learned? The answer is yes. I've conducted this for many managers, and before my program, I always ask them, do you have a clear and structured way to conduct interviews? And if you look at the first chart at the top, most of them will rate from 1 to 8, 10 being the best, majority rated between 1 to 8. After the program, I can say all of them rated 8, 9s, and 10s. Okay. Another question I asked them is, I asked them before my program, I asked them, are you confident that your interviewing technique is able to assess candidates accurately and effectively? So before the program, many of them said 1 to 8. In fact, 8 is actually pretty good. So I don't know what she was doing in my course, but she was there. Turns out she was an HR director who already knew how to interview. So she was at an 8. But even that, after the program, I'm so glad to see all of them went up to 9s and 10. Even the HR director learned something and benefited from it. So I was really glad about that. So I just want to reassure you that yes, it is something that can be learned, and it is something that I've helped many people around the world before, and I can definitely help you with this. So what does the class cover? The FBI Interview Masterclass. It will consist of 4 sessions, each session about 2 hours, right? So I spread that over 2 days, 4 sessions over 2 days. Session 1 is about awareness and mindset change. And one of the key things I'll do there is I am going to teach you how to conduct interviews online, through videos, through calls, and also the same technique you can use it face-to-face after MCO. All right. Session number 2, I'm going to cover the FBI technique itself. Right, I'm going to share with you a lot of case studies, and I'm going to share with you how to interview like the FBI, right? And the secret of asking the right questions. And there'll be a lot of case studies and role plays. Session 3, I'm going to allow you to practice the FBI technique. So there'll be role plays to practice. I will be observing personally and giving you direct feedback. Okay. And session 4 is the most interesting, because this is where you will get to use, I'll give you tips how to use the FBI technique in an actual interview. And I will give you, and this is valuable, the ultimate guide to interview like a pro, which is basically a cheat sheet of questions that you can ask for any interview. Right. Now, this cheat sheet is not something you can download anywhere. It's not something you can buy from Amazon. It's probably not something you can read in books, because this cheat sheet and this ultimate guide is a compilation of my experience over the 15 years of training companies all around the world. I gather all my experience and my case studies, and I summarize it into this ultimate guide for you. So all the participants of my course will get this, right? And if you ask me, no matter what the price of this course is, that guide itself will be worth it for you, because this is a guide you can use for every single interview you conduct from now till the end of your career. So 4 sessions. These are the dates that I've targeted, right? The dates are 12 May and 13th May, right? So 12 May, there'll be 2 sessions, 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the afternoon. On 13th May, 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the afternoon, okay? So 12 May is a Tuesday, 13th May is a Wednesday. Now, as part of this course, I want to repeat that you will learn how to design questions to target specific competencies. You will learn how to verify they are telling the truth. You will get an ultimate guide to interview like a pro, cheat sheet of questions, and a list of key questions that you can ask. And case studies and best practice from the 15 years of my experience. Right. So now I know what you're thinking. Well, a great ET, this is great. This sounds like a good course. This is a skill I can definitely use to enhance my career. How much will this cost? Okay, so let's get to that. The normal workshop price, if I were to normally, now I've done hundreds of these workshops, and if I were to normally do it before MCO, you know, where we go to a hotel, 5-star hotel, we conduct 2 days of workshop, the normal price would range between 1,008 to 2,005 per pax. Right, 1,008 to 2,005 per pax. Now, is this a lot? Well, compared to what? Remember, if you hire the wrong staff, it will cost you 3 times the annual salary. Right? If you hire the wrong staff. So what is a few $1,000s to invest to learn something that can avoid those kind of problems? However, now being online, the price for an online course is slightly less because we don't have the cost of the hotel. So it's going to be 1,005 per pax. Right, 1,005 per pax, and you get my full attention, my small group coaching, and I will share all my experiences, and I'm going to train you personally in a small group and also on one-on-one. There'll be sessions on one-on-one to equip you with this technique. However, because you are here today and you're listening in today, for the MCO, I'm offering a special price just for this period. The FBI Masterclass for 4 sessions will not be a 2,005, will not be 1,005. It will only be 499 for one person. 499 ringgit, not USD, ringgit for one person, or 599 for 2 persons. Now, why am I giving such a big discount? Because number one, I know everyone is in a cost-cutting mission. Companies are very careful about how they invest and spend their money. Right, so I want to make it affordable for a lot of managers out there, and also because I actually feel that this is a technique that all managers must learn. Right, I would really love it if everybody learns this so that they can know how to conduct interviews properly. That's why I'm offering $599 for 2 packs. Right, for an additional $100, you can bring a colleague, and that's why I want you to bring a colleague. Why? Because with a colleague, you will have someone to partner with you to learn together, and you can conduct interviews together when you go back to your company. Right, so you're almost like a partner to learn it with you and to implement it with you together. So it's basically it's $599 for 2 packs, right? Or $599 buy one free one. Okay, so only for the MCO period. Now, if the MCO ends, I cannot offer this price anymore because then you go back to my regular price of 2,005 per packs. Now, some of you may be wanting more one-on-one time with me, so I'm offering a FBI coaching session where it includes the masterclass of 4 sessions plus 3 coaching sessions, one-on-one coaching calls with me to help you with your next interview. So if in May or June, you're planning to conduct some interviews, the FBI coaching program will be useful for you because I'm going to call you before you conduct your interview, and I also call you after the interview to do a debrief and summary for you. So that's private coaching for you. And this will only cost 800 ringgit per pax, right? So this is the price that I'm offering only for the MCO period, only for my listeners online. So if you speak to your company, speak to your HR director, you will notice the pricing is very, very reasonable and very affordable for any corporate training, right? And remember, it used to be 2,005 per pax. So speak to your company, speak to your HR director, your training manager, because this is something that will impact the performance of your team and your company. So there's direct impact because these are the people you're bringing into your company. All right, so to book your spot, please type in the comment box now, whether you're on Zoom or Facebook Live, type in FBI now. If you want to book a spot, because I can't take too many people, because if I got too many people, I won't be able to give, I want to give good value to you. So I'm going to keep it intimate. So there are limited spots. So please type in FBI to book your spot and we will contact you. My team will contact you for the registration details. Right. So type in FBI if you're keen to book your spot for my program, right? Starting in 2 weeks' time. All right. Thank you very much, right? So the last 5 to 10 minutes, let's open up the floor for questions and Q&A. Type in any questions you may have. So I just want to reiterate about my FBI interview program, a top secret interview technique that can help you assess the candidate's capability and assess whether they're telling the truth or not. Program is on 12 and 13 May. Feel free to share this with your colleagues as well. Share this with your management team, and they may want to send a few people from your company to join this program. And again, to book a spot, type in FBI in the comments below. All right. So take a photo of this slide before I stop this, and then thanks a lot for your time, and hope to see you in our FBI program starting in 2 weeks' time. Thank you, everyone. Bye, and have a good evening.
Yeah.